As tensions simmer in Canada US trade relations, a long-standing dispute over softwood lumber is heating up again, with US President Donald Trump poised to deliver a potentially crushing blow to Canadian exports. Our contributor David Clement has more on how escalating tariffs could reshape the industry, pitting economic interests against political posturing.
The Canada US softwood lumber feud dates back decades, rooted in accusations that Canadian producers benefit from unfair subsidies. In Canada, most forests are publicly owned, with provinces charging stumpage fees that US rivals claim are too low compared to market rates south of the border. This has led to repeated cycles of duties, negotiations, and uneasy truces. Now, fast forward to today, the US Commerce Department is set to hike countervailing and anti dumping duties on Canadian softwood lumber from about 14% to roughly 34% in its sixth administrative review. For major player Canfor, that could spike to around 45%. But that's not all. Back in March, Trump launched a national security probe under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act. And expected later this year, it could slap on additional tariffs of up to 20%, even though lumber is currently exempt under the current USMCA trade deal. And of course, Trump himself has weighed in forcefully, declaring that the US doesn't need Canadian lumber at all.
We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests, et cetera, et cetera. We don't need their oil and gas. We have more than anybody.
Mr. Trump has urged foreign firms, including Canadians, to build mills in America to dodge tariffs, and he's touting it as a win, noting that companies like West Fraser, Canfor, Resolute, and Interfor now control about 40% of softwood production in the U.S. South through their investments there. And the economic stakes here are massive. For Canada, softwood lumber makes up 7.5% of total exports, with 68% heading to the U.S. That's about 12 billion board feet, worth billions of dollars annually. The industry generates 33.4 billion in sales and supports over 200,000 jobs, from foresters to mill workers. High duties could slash exports, hitting provincial revenues from stumpage fees and taxes hard. And on the U.S. side, though, the picture is mixed. The U.S. Lumber Coalition, represented by Andrew Miller, is pushing aggressively for these measures. They argue Canadian subsidies distort the market, and they want to cap Canada's U.S. market share at single digits, down from the current 25%. Miller predicts U.S. producers could ramp up to replace half of Canada's exports within 3 years. But not everybody agrees with that assessment. The National Association of Home Builders warns that tariffs would drive up lumber prices, adding nearly $11,000 to the cost of a new home, on top of averages already exceeding $400,000. This could stall residential construction, impacting 3.5 million housing workers and millions more in related fields, worsening America's housing affordability crisis. Now, Canadian voices are calling for negotiation. BC Premier David Eby and New Brunswick's Premier Susan Holt have floated the idea of export quotas as a compromise, which would be a first for Canada. The representative from the BC Lumber Trade Council urges the federal government to prioritize a settlement, arguing that punitive tariffs only inflate U.S. prices since domestic supply can't fully replace Canada's. As the logjam persists, the question remains: can any side truly prevail, or will mutual pain force a deal? With Trump's investigation looming, Canadian producers are bracing for impact, while U.S. consumers could pay the price.